there any sort of quick tips for copywriting when you're trying to sell or get an action from someone?
The call to action, like at the end, is important.
Yeah.
I always personally balk at that because here I am working for a marketing company, but I absolutely detest marketing and selling things. So even things that I want to sell, like the books that I have written, is like, I would like you to buy the book I wrote because I'm trying to be a full-time author. So hello, you need to buy my book. And I absolutely hate promoting my book. So it's kind of, I'm not the person to ask, but really a call to action is important. But it's important to have it at the end of, like a blog post or something. And again, even with a Facebook post, it's obviously going to be a lot shorter. Your Facebook post is going to be 2 sentences, and your blog post should be, 1,000 words or something. So it's longer, but still, it should be at the end because you want people to have a reason to follow through on the call to action. You don't want the first thing to be, here, buy this thing, and you have no idea who I am or what I'm selling or why it's of interest to you, but here's the link. So a call to action, but having a call to action at the end after you've given some sort of value, or at least explained why this thing you're selling might be of value to them. Gabby?
Honestly, I've done a lot of research on this, and there's probably about 20, maybe less than that. Sorry, I'm posting on Instagram about our team meeting. It's kind of fun. But yeah, there's probably about 12 to 20 words that are very in the human brain. You're compelled to click when you hear them. Now compels people to click now. I know it sounds so stupid. Or click here makes people want to click here. It's like seeing ice cream on a hot day. You're like, I want ice cream. That's just how our brains think. And so when you really guide the brain in this, because social media is now this overwhelming sea of people and things and messages and spam and all this stuff. So the 2 ways you can get ahead is number one, always being consistent. Even if you posted the same thing in kind of a different view or whatever, maybe you just post about let's say we're promoting a CD for Marte Music. I should at least, the book that I'm reading and the research I've done says that you should at least you have to see something 16 times before you want it and you actually go to get it. And so I think people make the mistake of thinking well, I don't want to wear out my audience. Well, yeah, don't wear them out. Don't put the same worn out picture about your advertising all the time. How about, if we're doing a Marte Music CD, post a picture of the CD, give a taste of a song, do a live video about it, do a live performance about it, do a behind the scenes picture about it, show that picture of the CD again. 16 times though is what you need to do. So consistency, and number 2 is not being afraid to ask for what you want. You don't need to do that every time. But you got to get to a place where you're hey, my CD's out. Go check it out on iTunes. That's it. Keep it short, And people do. They go check it out on iTunes, And then maybe the next post you don't say that, but you do a live video talking about it. Hey guys, I love my CD so much. It's my favorite song. I hope you guys heard it. If you didn't, you know where to find it, kind of thing. So keeping it authentic, but not being, it's kind of like a dating relationship. Being your true self while you date someone, but not being afraid to call them out. Hey, what are we as a boyfriend and girlfriend? Are we boyfriend and girlfriend, or are we just friends? I think you got to do the same thing with social media. You have to be blunt, but you have to be authentic, and you have to show up constantly. You can't be the cousin that comes in only at Christmas time wanting to eat dinner and get your presents. Nobody wants to hang out with you. Nobody wants to get down with you, But if you're the cousin that's there every function, you're there all the time, you hang out even when there's not a holiday. When it comes time and you need a loan or something, some money, you're no problem, dude. You're part of my life, And the same thing translates to social media 100%. So consistency and just being authentic and straightforward, I think, priceless in every medium.
And that actually genuinely works on social media. I have a personal story about that proves that can work if you're authentic and consistent online. Should I tell the story very briefly, Gabby?
I think so. I mean, Hunter, are you down for a story? I'm down for a story.
Yeah, I love stories.
Sure. Anyway, I know I told you about it at the time that it happened, Gabby. This was back last fall. But anyway, a friend of mine, she's a blogger. Anyway, she has a vintage clothing blog. She blogs about vintage clothing. So it's kind of a narrow topic, kind of esoteric. but she blogs about vintage clothing. But the vintage clothing community is kind of small, but they're very dedicated, and they all know each other online because, it's kind of a small niche kind of community. Well, anyway, she had a big tragedy happen in her life. Her house burned down last fall.
I remember that.
And she and her husband didn't really do any of this because they were just busy dealing with everything that happens and trying to find a place to sleep that night and on the phone with the insurance companies and, everything, just reeling from the shock. But a friend of hers, I think it might have even been an online friend, or maybe it was her sister. But anyway, someone who was close to her, but not necessarily physically close, set up a funding campaign online. And they hit the funding goal, they surpassed the funding goal in less than 24 hours. And it was many thousands of dollars. Because she had built such a relationship with so many people, all online. I mean, she had family members who were helping, but her sister, I think she stayed at her sister's house or something the first night when they couldn't go home. But, other than that, her sister couldn't give her, hundreds of thousands of dollars to rebuild her life with.
Right.
But because she had been so consistent, she blogged like 3 times a week because she had been very consistent with her blogging and her social media and was also very authentic and very present. If anybody commented on her blog, she always replied. Or all the social media that she uses, mostly Facebook and Instagram is what she uses. If anybody commented on any of her posts or anything, she always answered, always engaged in conversation. She didn't do it a lot. She posts on Instagram, maybe every couple of days, on Facebook maybe once or twice a week or something, not a lot. But it was always very consistent, and she always engaged with people and was always very kind and polite, but very authentic too. She's just a very kind, polite, gentle, loving sort of person, but she was just very authentic in everything she do, and her authenticity came through in her voice, in her blog writing, and everything. Anyway, and so because of this, when somebody else set up this funding campaign after this tragedy happened, they got like twice the amount that they had asked for online, and probably even then some, and people sent care packages to her sister's house and all this stuff, and she got, really the basics to start rebuilding her life within just a couple of days after the tragedy, all from, 90% of it from people that she'd never met, but had built such a relationship with them. So it can be done. So that's not necessarily copywriting per se, but since we kind of veered off the topic, but that really is the power of, and it really drove it home to me. I donated, I donated money. I sent her a care package. I sent her, an email, along with thousands of other people, but it really drove home to me the power that social media really can have if you do it right, if you are consistent and you're authentic. And she had stuff to sell too. She sold advertising space on her blog, and she had an Etsy store. So that's where her income came from. So she did have a product that she was selling as well as just blogging and sharing, pictures of 1950s dresses and whatnot on Instagram. She also had things that she was selling. So she had a product to sell because she had a lot of things on her Etsy store. But it wasn't just about sales. Some of it was about sales, but it was really more just her being authentic, and her having an Etsy store was just part of who she was. And so it all just came out naturally and organically and authentically. So anyway, it was just a really clear point to me that if you're just consistent and authentic more than anything else, you really can and just connect with people and remember that it's people on the other side of the screen.
I think that's been my biggest struggle as a marketer, because you get people preaching to you in a lot of these blogs who really aren't authentic, and they preach to you. Maybe some people can get away with not being authentic, but social media is just that. It was made to be social. That's where it started, and I think that's where the heart of it beats still. And you see a lot of people that get really salesy, and that's never worked for me as someone in the marketing industry. As soon as you get salesy, you lose your audience, and I've seen that with my own music brand, with our Helps 2 brand. That's why I'm always talking about Helps 2. We've definitely got a lot warmer as a company, but we started off really cold, right, Grace? And we've tried to find our voice, tried to find our people, because we need a place to build community and be authentic, because that's where you start getting that momentum, that fire. And so Marte Music, I have that fire because, you know, I've met people on the road when we were touring doing music, and they feel like, I mean, we know them. And so that's kind of where that authenticity comes from. And yeah, we've raised money, Marte Music. Like, we've raised money for the album that I just produced. I raised money to go to Costa Rica. I raised $4,000 on the internet in 3 weeks. I don't know how the heck that happened. Nothing but relationships. It had to be. And people would just see my face in live videos and be like, that's my friend. Like, we got to do this. And so I'm really grateful for that authenticity factor. I mean, we could try to give you put a comma after transitional. I mean, but honestly, like, those are the things that have really kept us going and made us alive still as a company.